So today we're diving into a region that's not only packed with strategic value, but is also home to one of South Asia's longest-running and most complex conflicts, Balochistan. It's a huge story about resources, rebellion, and geopolitics, so let's just jump right in.
Okay, first things first, let's get our bearings. You're looking at Balochistan, Pakistan's largest province by a long shot. See how it borders Iran to the west, Afghanistan up north, and then it's got this massive, really important coastline along the Arabian Sea. And to really get a sense of the scale here, just look at this number, 44%. That's how much of Pakistan's total landmass this one province takes up. It's just a vast, rugged, and pretty arid landscape.
And you just can't overstate how strategic its location is. It's home to some huge development projects, but the one you've probably heard of is the deep-sea Gwadar port. It's become a real centerpiece in global trade ambitions.
Right, and this gets us to the big paradox, the central question we're trying to unpack here. You have a land that's loaded with resources, totally crucial for global trade, and yet it's still Pakistan's poorest and least populated province. So what on earth is going on? Well, to even begin to understand what's happening today, you gotta look back. The roots of this conflict, the deep resentment, it's all buried in the region's history. You know, before Pakistan was created in 1947, the main power here was something called the Khanate of Kalat. For many Baloch people, this isn't just a historical footnote, it's the symbol of a time when they were independent, when they had their own autonomy.
So, the turning point, the moment everything changed, was 1948. The Khanate was officially merged into the new state of Pakistan. But here's the thing. For Baloch nationalists, this was no happy union. They see it as a forced, illegitimate takeover, and that single event has become the emotional core of their grievance ever since.
And this timeline, it really shows you this conflict is not a new thing. It's a cycle that just keeps repeating. There have been 5 major uprisings since 1948, all sparked by the same issues: autonomy, control over resources, and political power. It's this tragic pattern of rebellion and crackdown that's defined the region for over 7 decades. Okay, so that's the history. But what's fueling the fire today? Let's break down the specific issues driving the modern insurgency. First and foremost, it's about resources. Balochistan is sitting on an absolute treasure trove of natural wealth. We're talking huge natural gas fields, some of the world's biggest copper and gold deposits, not to mention coal and a bunch of other rare minerals. And this slide tells a really powerful story. The #1 economic grievance for the Baloch is that all this immense wealth is being pulled out of the ground by the federal government and foreign companies. But locally, the Baloch people see almost none of the benefit. So you end up with this terrible irony: widespread poverty in a land of incredible plenty. And beyond the money, the grievances are deeply political. Baloch nationalists feel completely sidelined. They point to the fact that they have almost no control over their own resources, that the central government is always interfering in local politics, and that there's a heavy, constant military presence everywhere you look. And this all leads to one of the most painful and, frankly, disturbing parts of this whole conflict. A huge part of the Baloch story involves serious allegations of human rights abuses, specifically what they call enforced disappearances of activists and a terrifying kill and dump policy. These claims just pour fuel on the fire of anger and mistrust. So you can see this isn't just some local squabble. We need to zoom out, because the entire world is watching Balochistan. It's become a true geopolitical crossroads. And right at the center of all that international attention is Gwadar Port. It's called the jewel in the crown for a reason. This deep water port is seen as a total game changer for trade and power in the entire region. So why is it such a big deal? Well, Gwadar is the endpoint, the linchpin of the massive China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, also known as CPEC. Basically, it gives China its most direct shot to the Arabian Sea, letting it bypass all the usual shipping choke points. It's a huge deal for Beijing. And then, look at where it is on the map. Balochistan's coast is literally a stone's throw from the Strait of Hormuz. That's the tiny waterway where a massive chunk of the world's oil supply has to pass through every single day. So yeah, having influence here, it's absolutely critical for global energy security. Okay, with so much on the line for the Baloch people, for Pakistan, and for the world, what does the future actually hold? Let's look at what people are demanding and what stands in the way of peace.
Now, it's really important to know that the Baloch movement isn't one single thing. The demands fall along a spectrum. You have many groups asking for more provincial autonomy, control over their own resources, and basic cultural rights, all within Pakistan. But then you have other more hardline groups for whom the only goal is total independence.
And Pakistan's response has basically been two-pronged. On one hand, military operations to crush the insurgency. On the other, they offered development packages, trying to win hearts and minds with money. The problem is, there's such a deep historical lack of trust that these initiatives are often seen as too little, too late.
Which leaves us with the big final question. Is there a path forward here? Can real dialogue, real economic justice, and respect for rights actually create a new future for this region? Or is Balochistan just destined to be a permanent fault line, a source of conflict inside Pakistan and a point of tension on the world map? That is the question that remains unanswered.